What is going on, Heat Seekers? It's your host, Rick, back here after a week off. Brad filled in admirably for me. Bryce, how was your week?
It was good. Thanks for asking. I picked up a second job, so it was kind of adjusting to that extra schedule. But I'll never miss these Tuesday night streams. So it was a tiring week, but I got through it. Leonie, how are you doing?
Doing very good. Glad to be back. Hope we have a good show. It's good to see both you guys this fine evening.
I like how he says, hope we have a good show. Like he has no confidence in our ability to put on a good show and give you guys good information. Thanks, Anthony. Now we have a lot to live up to, Bryce. We better not mess this up.
We'll be
Anthony will be upset with us. We might get fired. Who knows? Okay, so today it's real simple. We're talking Dynasty trade targets. Each of us we've put a list together, and we each have one for each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And we're gonna go through those, and we'll just jump right into this. Let me move my list around here. Anthony, we're gonna start with quarterback. Who you got here for us?
All right. So my guy for quarterback that I think people should be trying to target, whether it's a one quarterback league or a super flex league, is Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders. In 2020 and 2021, Derek Carr finished the season as quarterback 13 each season, quarterback 13. Talk about consistent. Over the past 4 seasons, he's thrown over 4,000 yards. Just this past season, he threw for 4,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. I think that he is currently undervalued in general. I don't think most people view him as a top 12 quarterback. Yeah, he's not. He's quarterback 13, but I mean, he's right there in the top echelon of quarterbacks in fantasy football. Now with Davante Adams signing in Vegas, I expect him to be able to inflate his touchdown numbers higher than they were. I don't know if he'll break 5,000 yards. He was just a couple hundred yards shy of that last season. So I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility for Carr. I don't think there is a quarterback you can trade for right now where you can get easily top 10 quarterback upside at such a fair price. So that's why Carr is my guy.
Bryce, what are you thinking?
So I agree and disagree with some of Leonie's stuff. I do think Derek Carr is a good asset. I think he's going to have great value this upcoming fantasy season. And I think that people did undervalue him. But I think at this point, he's going to be overvalued. Like the people that have him, and I'm talking mostly super flex because in one QB leagues, quarterbacks aren't as valuable, obviously. I think that the people that have him are going to be stoked that he just got Davante Adams, and they're going to hope they're going to see Aaron Rodgers-like numbers from him. And I think that the price point for Derek Carr might be a little bit too high. So, yeah, if you can find an owner that has him and you can get him for the right price, sure, I think he is a good target. I just think you're going to struggle to find that for all the people that have held on to him and have had him for this time. I think his value, shot up a little bit too high with the offseason addition of Davante Adams. Personally, what do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with either of you. When you look at his ADP at quarterback, he is QB 18, but that's his draft ADP. I think it's going to be hard to get people to trade him for QB 18 value if that makes sense. Because like you said, a lot of people have held on to him. He's been hard to trade in the past because people weren't willing to give up enough for him. And I think it just shifts up to where the people that have him still want more than what people are going to be willing to give up for him. But he is definitely a guy that is, going into the season will be viewed as a QB2 that has potential to be a QB1 this next year. So it's more just dependent on the price. So it's going to be dependent on the league and the person that has that player. But yeah, he's not bad. And looking at ADP value, he definitely is lower than he probably should be in Dynasty. So, it's kind of a lukewarm agree, disagree, nothing too crazy either way. I don't think you're out of line at all, Anthony.
No.
Bryce, you were up, and I loved your pick. This is probably who I would have went with if I didn't allow you guys always to pick before I do. So, who do you got here?
It's funny because I think all the counter arguments I just gave for Leone, he could easily give for this guy as well. But I put Tua Tagovailoa on there. And I would have put him even if Tyreek Hill didn't get traded to the Dolphins, honestly. Tua last year actually went 8-4 as the starter on the year. Like, he had a very successful record, and I really do believe that if he played every single game, they would have made it to the playoffs. Now that you add that extra weapon in Tyreek Hill, his value just goes through the roof. A lot of people undervalue Tua, and again, his value did shoot up after the Tyreek Hill thing, but I still think that he's undervalued after that trade. If you watch him, he's a really poised guy in the pocket. He doesn't get rattled and things like that. And I think he's a leader. I think this year he takes that extra step and he puts himself in that conversation as a reliable QB. I don't know if I see him as QB1 value, but a very high-end QB2 with low QB1 value is definitely something I could see with Tua this upcoming season. So, Leone, what are your thoughts on Tua?
Again, I'm going to have to kind of give the same answer you gave for my guy, which was, if the price is right, I think it's a good investment. If I had to pick between owning Carr, for example, and Tua in a dynasty league, I would rather own Carr. I think their ADP is probably similar. I would imagine Tua.
They're right back to back. Derek Carr at QB 18 and Tua at QB 19.
Yeah, so for me, I would rather own Carr of the two, just as an example. But I don't hate the selection. I think if it's the right price for the same reasons I mentioned Carr, I think it's a good move. Rick?
Listen, I am all on board the Tua bandwagon this offseason. My last article was talking about how Tyreek Hill is not doomed because he's going from Patrick Mahomes to Tua. Tua was very, very accurate last year. And what I think a lot of people are forgetting is that the NFL, while it's more pass heavy, it's actually a lot more shorter passes than it has been in the past. Quarterbacks aren't just heaving it down the field. Tyreek Hill had his lowest ADOT of his career last year with Patrick Mahomes, but it was a volume thing, right? And I think that Tua is going to eat with Waddle and Hill because they both basically how you use those guys is you don't just shoot them down the field and throw it long. You get them in the open space and get the ball to them quick and let them do the rest of the work, right? And I think they're going to thrive in that. The field is going to be so spaced out. There's going to be so much room. And if they're going to double Hill, then Waddle's just going to eat, right? And if they try to, work that defense around differently to try to do both, they're both going to eat. So there's just a lot of talent now on this team. And, like I was talking about the shorter stuff, the reason why Patrick Mahomes threw for so many yards wasn't because he was heaving it down the field with Tyreek Hill. They had 4 guys in the top 21 of yards after catch. Tyreek Hill was obviously one of them at 17, but Darrell Williams, Travis Kelce, and Mecole Hardman were all in the top 21 in the NFL in yards after the catch, total yards after the catch. That's what Miami's going to try to do in this offense. Is create plays like that, and Tua can do that. He can hit his guys within 10 to 15 yards easy, and I don't think he's necessarily as bad of a deep passer as people think because he's been throwing deep to Devontae Parker, and we know Devontae Parker's no good. We've known that for a long time. So he's got some more talent. I like it. I'm going with Tua this year. I'm all on board. Any last counterpoints there with anything that I said?
No,
Nope.
sounded
See, I nailed it. Filled in all the
sounded
gaps.
pretty fair.
Good. So, when I picked my guy, this one kind of stings a little bit because, obviously in 2017, the Bears traded up from 3 to 2 with your 49ers and took a man named Mitchell Trubisky. Didn't look good under John Fox in year 1. Year 2 with Nagy was a special year. Mitchell Trubisky was leading the league at quarterback position with rushing yards before he got hurt in week 8. Ended up being an alternate for the Pro Bowl team, put up pretty solid numbers and averaged almost 19 points a game in fantasy. And then after that injury, Nagy just quit using him as a runner, quit using that mobility, quit using Trubisky's strengths. We know Trubisky can miss his receivers. That's probably not changed. But he did get to work with Daboll in Buffalo, and Daboll was interested in bringing him to the Giants, so he must have seen something in Trubisky. But Trubisky, no matter what, gets to play in the best offense he's ever played in with Mike Tomlin. The offensive coordinator, who's, kind of blanking me right now, has been looking for a mobile quarterback for that system. And Ben was the complete opposite of that, especially the last few years. Opposite of mobile. And then they've got weapons, right? They've got Claypool. They've got Deontay Johnson. They've got Najee Harris out of the backfield. They've got Pat Freiermuth at tight end. Trubisky's working with the best grouping of talent that he's had, right? He had Allen Robinson, but after Allen Robinson, that was basically it in the passing game. And they didn't use the running backs very much. So I think Trubisky is just a good value. There is a chance, and right now you can wait a week, right, and see what happens in the draft. Make sure, if Pittsburgh takes Malik Willis or something, then you're obviously not going to want to probably be in the acquiring Trubisky business, but he'll be cheaper at that point too. He's already cheap, but it'll even be cheaper if they do something like that. So may not be worth, may not hurt to take a stab at him. So I don't think he's going to be great, but for the price that he's at, and then actually getting to work with the best offensive minds he's worked with as a starter, if they don't draft somebody, I think Trubisky could be a good QB2 in your super flex leagues with back end quarterback 1 upside because of the rushing ability if they use him in that way, which seems like they're going to want to if he does end up being the starter. Bryce, what are your thoughts?
You mentioned the counterpoint I was going to put on there, and that was that I wouldn't trade for him until the draft because I am afraid that Pittsburgh potentially could get a QB and Trubisky might not play the whole year. But right now, I feel like Trubisky's like one of those guys that landed in a great spot, great coaches and everything that nobody's really talking about. So I think you can get him real cheap, and he could have a lot of value if they decide that they're going to roll with him. I believe Pittsburgh picks at 20, and if they do take a quarterback at that spot, I'd be probably hesitant to take a stab on him. Again, it would depend on price, but I think I think Trubisky is probably a top 3 guy I'm trading for when it comes to quarterback and the price they are for this offseason. So I agree with you. Leone?
Make the offer now in your leagues for Trubisky. You don't necessarily have to pay the price right now, but feel them out. Say, hey, I'll give you a late 3rd, 4th round pick for Trubisky, Superflex league. They may say, well, maybe I'll think about it, or they may say, yeah, okay, you might say, well, I'll hold off till after the draft, but at least get the conversation moving now, because they may say, yeah, for a 4th, send it now, and I would do that trade now. Depends on the price. But I agree with what Bryce was saying. I kind of would rather wait until after the NFL draft. The only issue with that is if the Steelers don't trade for a quarterback or don't draft a quarterback in the draft, all of a sudden that 4th round pick is going to shoot up to at least an early 3rd, maybe 2nd round pick. So I would put out the feeler now, see if you can get him real cheap for like a 4th round pick. I think it's a great call. I think he could have a good season, but I'm afraid if you wait till after the NFL draft, his value will either be nothing or way higher than what you could get him for right now.
I'd pay an early 3rd easily if after the draft for a starting quarterback.
But I don't think after the NFL draft he'll be valued at a third or less. He'll be at a second round value.
If you need quarterback, I mean, I'd still second, especially if it's a mid to late second, I'd be a smash, except for me personally.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I think no matter what, that the cost of acquisition isn't going to be. It's not going to kill you in the long term if he doesn't end up being the long term quarterback.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a trade target, is somebody that I can get cheap, that has that high QB2 upside with, maybe back end QB1 upside if he's used in the running game. And we know that he can run. He's still young. And like I said, for half a season was leading the entire NFL in quarterbacks at rushing. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, guys like that weren't in the league yet, but he was still a running quarterback at one point in his career. And we know that Matt Nagy sucks. So I do agree with Sully too, is that we don't even know if any of these quarterbacks in this draft are even better than Trubisky, right? They may not be able to beat him out for the job for at least this year. And if you pay a second for a quarterback in Superflex, a third for a quarterback in Superflex, and even get 1 year out of them, and it helps you win a championship, then it's well worth it in regard there. Okay. Bryce, you're up first at tight end. We're getting the boring positions out of the way first, by the way, everybody. We're saving wide receiver and running back for last. But you're up first at tight end, and
yeah,
I'm gonna have
this is a homer pick for sure. But I think for value, like, I think this is one of the higher upsides for value, because Jonnu Smith disappointed so bad last year. Like, he was probably one of the most disappointing players that moved to a new team and literally did nothing. And obviously I pay close attention to New England, and they say they're going to get him more involved. I mean, there's not much talent in that receiving core. Like, he arguably is the best raw talent when it comes to catching the ball and after the catch, even out of the wide receivers. So they have to get him more involved if that offense wants to be more successful than they were last year. So again, I think this is a guy you could potentially get for like a third round, fourth round pick, probably not a fourth, but a third round pick, even if it's like early to mid. And I think that the upside is there with him. So just a guy I thought for the value is one of the more lucrative guys you could pick up this offseason. What do you think, Rick?
This reminds me of the Christian Michael scenario, where every year we get hype about the same guy and then nothing ever happens and we're disappointed year after year after year. And at some point I just got to cut bait and realize that this person is not going to be any good, at least for us in fantasy. And Jonnu Smith fits that, right? He is hyped every preseason for the past 4 years. We've been on this Jonnu Smith breakout year deal. It's kind of reminds me of Chris Herndon. Every year after year after year. And I personally can't do it anymore. I'm done with Jonnu Smith. He has disappointed me enough. He has disappointed me in literally leagues that ran the last 4 years and don't run anymore. He was disappointing in every single year of those leagues that they existed. So I just can't do it. Obviously, you see the raw talent, you see the big play. We see 80-yard touchdown reception out of a tight end, and we're like, yeah, Jonnu's about to break out, and then nothing for weeks on weeks on weeks. That's why I can't do it. The talent seems to be there, but for some reason never comes to fruition. So there's no I don't think he's talented argument or anything like that. It's just simply, how many times can you be disappointed before you just let it go? Anthony.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Rick here. I don't hate taking flyers on guys if I have extra bench spots. I think that's really what every dynasty owner should be doing is always using every bench spot they can. Although in this instance with Jonnu Smith, I think there are other comparable tight ends that are priced relatively the same, but I think have more upside and have more unknown potential. And I think a better chance at having a good season. For example, just some guys that just come to mind: Adam Trautman, Tyler Higbee. I mean, the list kind of goes on with a lot of these guys are really similar. I just think I agree more so with Rick that I think Jonnu's. I think that train left the station. I don't see it happening.
So here's my question. When we're looking at ADP here for tight ends, Jonnu does come in as tight end 42, so he is cheap. He's basically free.
Yeah.
So that's not tough. We got guys like Mo Alley Cox, a couple spots ahead of him, who is very interesting to me, very athletic, obviously ex-basketball player that, continues to get more and more involved every year. Austin Hooper, who's in Tennessee now, is tight end 35. CJ Uzoma, who went to the Jets, is tight end 38. Are you taking Jonnu Smith over all of these guys, or are there some of those guys that you'd rather take shots on there?
I think I would go with who. It depends on like what I have already. Like I think Jonnu has a higher upside than all those guys. I think those guys could be like safer picks. Like I'm not really like, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it would, but I think Jonnu Smith has a better chance to be like a top 10 wide receiver than those guys, and that's just based on talent and the resources on that team already. So yeah, I will, because ideally you would have a better tight end on your team already. I would prefer just a safe tight end as my starter, and then I take chances on guys that have that talent that could potentially be like a top 10 guy. I mean, yeah, he's disappointed time and time again, but I mean, at this point, like I said, he's basically cheap. That's why I put him on there. And we see that he has the potential to be like a top 10 guy. It just hasn't happened, and I'm not expecting it to, but for free, I'll take the chance is pretty much my thinking there. Leone?
Gotcha. So I'm up next.
I was just going to add, with Hunter Henry and the quarterback situation in New England with not a very pass happy offense, I just think that there are just other tight ends that are ranked around the same place that offer more fantasy upside. But I understand what you're saying, and like I said before, always use your roster spots wisely. And if you can get a guy like that with some upside early in the season, see what happens. Maybe Hunter Henry gets hurt in the preseason. All of a sudden, Jonnu Smith's stock is going to rise incredibly high, relatively speaking. So yeah, no, I think it's a good.
I'm glad you added the relatively speaking, because I'm like, well, I don't think it's going to rise like super high.
Relatively speaking.
I'm going to change my guy on the fly, because I'm looking at this ADP and I'm like, what? Logan Thomas, tight end 24. When I look at this list, I don't see guys at 24 and below that actually have a chance to be a top 6 tight end. And this is what we've seen out of Logan Thomas 2 years ago. We know that Carson Wentz likes his tight ends. And I think that, last year we were drafting Logan Thomas as a top 12 guy. Obviously, injuries, a completely disjointed offense. And at tight end 24 price, I'm all over Logan Thomas. And I'm going to be sending out offers right after the show is over, because I think that is criminally undervalued. And just to throw out there, my first one was Noah Fant, because of him falling after the trade and him being involved and going the opposite direction of Russell Wilson. And the fact that Noah Fant's 12 and Albert O is 13 just boggles my mind. Noah Fant is a lot better than Albert O, I think. And even with the quarterback change and everything else. But anyways, Logan Thomas, tight end 24, just seems criminally undervalued to me. Anthony, what are you thinking?
100% agree with you. I think that's a solid pick. He is 30, but tight ends typically, can play a little bit later in their career. He doesn't have to, be a field stretcher. He can catch the ball underneath, be like you said, a target in the end zone for his quarterback. So yeah, no, I think Logan Thomas is a great pick. I think that's a good audible on your part. I think that's a good call. Bryce?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, they got Carson Wentz there now, and he does like to utilize the tight ends. So, Yeah, you probably can get him pretty cheap just because of his age. People might be looking to, especially if somebody is even like a middle of the pack team, they're like, let me cash in on some of my older guys. If you're somewhat of a contender and you need some help at tight end, I think Logan Thomas definitely has top 10 upside. He already has done it. So, yeah, I agree completely. That's a good one.
Yeah, just think about this. So he is right there with Brevin Jordan is right behind him at tight end 25.
That's a Texans tight end, isn't it?
Yeah,
Who's
and you had to
ahead of him?
ask.
Who's at 23?
Right ahead of him is Robert Tonyan, Evan Ingram, and Rob Gronkowski and Gerald Everett. I would much
I'd
rather
rather have Thomas over all of them.
Logan Thomas over all of them. And to speak to the age thing, if we're getting a guy really cheap and he's 30, we don't need the 3 to 4 years out of him that we need somebody that we're giving up, first round rookie draft capital of, right? So that's something to always remember. While somebody might be older, take that price. What are you going to do? I mean, that's a third round rookie pick, probably potentially a fourth round at, an average ADP of 201 and tight end 24, unless you're in a tight end premium league, obviously. It's not going to cost very much to go out and trade for Logan Thomas. So
Thomas,
I like that one.
Thomas is a great guy to try to target in your dynasty rookie drafts when you're on the clock in the late second, early third. You don't really like anyone on the board. That's when you say, hey, you want this pick? That's the perfect opportunity to do something like that.
And you're probably going to be able to get him as pretty much a throw-in on those trades. Not even trying to acquire him for that third or fourth round, but getting him in a throw-in in a bigger package where you get a stud and then you get Logan. You say, hey, Logan, throw Logan Thomas in there, and we're good.
Good call.
Who's your guy, Anthony?
My guy, Minnesota Vikings, Irv Smith Jr. Irv Smith is another name that we've heard for the past few years. He's had an incredibly slow start to his career. But as we know, sometimes tight ends take a little bit of time anyway. Now, he did lose last season to a meniscus tear, although head coach Kevin O'Connell, it's on record, even actually this came out after we put this list together, but he's on track for the season. So I think this is the perfect opportunity right now. That news did not get airwaves. I only saw one blurb about it because my notifications are a little excessive. But this is the right time to buy Irv Smith. He's on track to return this season. He had 5 touchdowns the last time he was on the field. He did miss this last season. I think it's the perfect opportunity to add him. Bryce?
Yeah, this is one of your picks that I didn't mind at all. I like Irv Smith. I like Irv Smith Jr. I didn't have any disagreements because I think, again, the price is so cheap for a guy with really high upside. He was hurt all last year. People that own him probably drafted him and are just they might be at the point where I'm tired of this. He hasn't done anything yet. And like you said, tight ends sometimes take a couple of years to really adjust to the NFL speed, the size. They got to be able to block, do routes, all that good stuff. So I like Irv Smith Jr. for the price. I think he has really high upside and is cheap. So Rick, what do you think?
My only counterpoint would be that people have held him, and it's going to. I mean, he is tight end 15, so it's not like he's so suppressed for value that he may be a little harder to acquire than we would think. I do think there's a lot of opportunity in that offense, and I think that Irv Smith could be a very good player. So it's not anything again about the player. But if people have him right now, they just went through the year that he was supposed to break out, probably held him or acquired him in a trade during last season and then held him. I think he's going to be a little bit harder to acquire than you would anticipate for a guy in that range. So that would be my only counterpoint to that. But I don't think he's a bad guy to try to acquire if you can get him at that suppressed price.
Where's Tyler Conklin on that list? He was surprisingly pretty good last year. Got the opportunity.
Tyler Conklin is not even on this list, unless I'm looking at it wrong. I only see one Tyler. Let me do a little search here.
I remember they had a tight end that was doing pretty well last year.
It was
I mean, he had
Yeah,
61 catches, 593 yards. I mean, that's pretty solid. I don't know if he was. I mean, 2018 was his rookie year, so he's been in the league a little bit. But he went to the Jets. Some guy just down there said he went to the Jets. No wonder he disappeared off the list. Never mind.
Yep, Patrick in here saving the day. Conklin went to the Jets, but he was not. He's not even in there in.
That's why.
ADP.
That's why.
He went to the Jets and is immediately removed from all rankings and ADPs. I mean, there's a guy named Jalen Whitermer, and I don't even. Is that a rookie? That's probably why.
Texas A&M rookie. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
He might go undrafted. He might get drafted late.
I got to study my rookies while I'm in Vegas when the draft's going on next week.
He's around 5 through 7, more than likely. That guy is.
Oh well, he's right behind Adam Troutman in ADP. Okay, so that gives us our final tight end. I think that that was a good one, Anthony. But it is just going to depend on what people are asking after holding them for the year.
Sure.
Okay, next up we have wide receivers. I'm up first, and this is a guy that for a few years I was like, I don't want no part of him. He was going from team to team. He was kind of like one of those Instagram girls going from team to team, getting her ride in every city. And I thought there had to be something wrong with him, right? Like, how is he so productive, but nobody wants to keep him? So he went from the Saints after 3 years, had 2,000-yard seasons there. Then he gets traded to the Patriots. 1 year there, goes over 1,000 yards, and they kick him out. Goes to the Rams, spends 2 seasons there, and goes over 1,000, I think, both of those, and then gets booted out of there and goes to Houston. Actually, I think he was it Rams 3 years? No, 2 years. One of them 1,200 yards. The other one 583. Then Texans for 2,000-yard seasons. This guy's been in the league the same amount of time as Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams has 3 1,000-yard seasons. This guy has 6. 6 out of 8 years, he's went over 1,000. He's went over 6 touchdowns, 5 out of the 8 years. He's consistent. And this is Brandon Cooks. Obviously, you've probably already figured that out. I think I just think this guy's criminally undervalued. And even though I thought something had to be wrong with him bouncing around literally 3 teams in 3 years, all 1,000-yard seasons, didn't make any sense. But he just consistently puts up 1,000 yards. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Doesn't matter. It's just, that's what he does. And nobody values him that way, right? And I think you can get him because he's a Houston Texan with Davis Mills throwing to him for a very good price, and then get yourself good wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1, back end wide receiver 1 numbers on a week-to-week basis. Bryce, what are your thoughts? He played for your team at one point.
Yeah, I actually was really upset when they got rid of him. Brandon Cooks is, I don't understand the hate that he gets. Like, every week on Sunday mornings, he's in a start or sit question multiple times. Like, it's like, you got to start him. Like, at this point, he's Mr. Consistent. Like, he's always good for like 10 points, it seems like. Of course, he has weeks less than that, but this guy is extremely undervalued. He's, like you just pointed out, like the statistics, the stats don't lie. So I like it. I think his price is cheap. It's always been cheap for some reason, except probably early in his career when he played for the Saints and the Patriots, because he obviously had really great quarterback play. But he's proven that he can do it with subpar quarterback play, and he's probably going to continue to do it. Again, Devontae Adams is the same age as him, and he's still producing at a high level, and we can continue to see that probably for a couple of years. Davis Mills is a young guy. He's going to go to his veteran receivers that have proven to be, pretty good. So I expect Brandon Cooks to be the only good thing that comes out of that offense this year. So I want every part of it. Leone?
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I think he's a baller. I'd like to ask Rick if he can check some guys above him in ADP, just because I'm curious I would imagine I'd prefer him over some of the guys directly in front of him if you could pull that up.
Probably.
Some guys that come to mind would be like maybe Tyler Lockett or, I don't know. But I would rather have Brandon Cooks over Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett is way ahead of him.
Yeah, and I'd rather have Cooks over Tyler Lockett.
No, he's not.
Myself.
Tyler Lockett is below him. I was wrong.
Oh, okay.
Brandon Cooks is wide receiver 42. So we're looking at Chase Claypool is 2 ahead of him. Allen Robinson 3 ahead of him. Mike Williams 4 ahead of him. Obviously, all these rookies are pushed up right now. Rookie fever. Below him, we've got George Pickens 43, Hunter Renfrow 44, Gabriel Davis 45, Sky Moore 46, Christian Kirk, the $21 million man, 48. Gallup 49, Lockett 50. Lockett should probably be on our list for a trade target.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's too far down there.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah.
Okay. No, I think it's a good call. Davis Mills. I don't know if Mills is the long-term answer, but he's more than comparable to put Cooks in a good spot, and I think it's a good call. I like the pick a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember him being injured ever, really.
Yeah, definitely don't remember that, but 42. Wow, yeah. Okay. Who did I have up next here? Anthony. Who do we got?
All right. So my pick. Now this is you guys criticized my last two for maybe being too valuable. This is not going to be the case for this guy. I picked of the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, please do. I'm curious myself. I picked of the Carolina Panthers, Terrace Marshall Jr. He's coming into his second season. His rookie season, he only had 17 catches for 138 yards. He's buried behind DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, bad quarterback play. But in Dynasty, sometimes you just have to know that, this guy is talented. There's an immense amount of upside. And he was probably like a second-round value last year. He's way lower than that now after his terrible first season. But even though his value's suppressed, he's still just as big as he was when he was drafted. He ran a 4.45 40-yard dash at the combine. I just think he is incredibly cheap and has a huge amount of upside that, he's not going to be too expensive right now. This is the time to get someone like that and stash him if you can. Bryce?
I don't care about the 40 time. I just want to point that out. But I don't like Terrace Marshall Jr., but if I can get him for a third-round pick.
Whoa. I know why you don't like Terrace Marshall Jr. He doesn't play in the NFL. His name is Terrace Marshall Jr.
Sorry, I apologize. I apologize, Terrace. All right, Terrace.
I want you to apologize to Terrace and his father. Right.
Sorry, Terrace.
And Terrence, if there's a Terrence out there.
Terrace Sr. But as I was saying, I just don't care about the 40 time. But if I can get him for a third-round pick, I would do that, like you just kind of mentioned. Yeah. So the value, if it's that cheap, I would 100% take a stab at him. But he was on the field a lot last year, even though he is buried on that depth chart. And I kind of alluded to it before the stream today. Matt Brown kind of was keeping tabs on this guy, and he was talking about how he lacked production compared to a lot of the other rookies for the amount of time he was on the field. So, like, for only having 17 catches for the amount of time he was on the field, it was like he said it was really bad. So that's the only thing I worry about. But again, quarterback play, it is Dynasty, so he's not going to be with the same quarterback that they have right now. Panthers have got to make a move there. So, for the price of a third-round pick, that's probably all I'm willing to pay for that guy so far.
I don't think you're going to have to pay that much. No. To be completely honest, I think this is a guy that many have probably they'll throw in on any deal if they need to free up a roster spot. He's that guy that you could pick on their roster. And there's no reason to not take shots on highly touted rookies like that. After 1 year, that situation in Carolina was horrendous. You've got DJ Moore ahead of you. You've got Robbie Anderson, despite Robbie Anderson's poor play last year, he was targeted a lot. I'm not going to, while Terrace Marshall may not have the upside that I thought he had coming into last season, while I probably don't believe that, there's still a potential for him to be a wide receiver 3 on your fantasy team or a flex on your fantasy team. I don't think that opportunity's gone. And I think 4th and 5th round picks, throw-ins and trades could get you Terrace Marshall right now. So I don't see the issue with trying to acquire him at all. It's almost a free player, and you're taking a chance after 1 year, and I'll take a chance on rookies after 1 year that were, highly touted. And especially when they're in bad situations like he was in Carolina. It's just that offense was horrendous.
Agreed.
And that doesn't mean that he could have been better, right? But then again, if we were thinking wide receiver 2 upside, even if he's wide receiver back end, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 flex upside, that's still valuable for the price you're going to pay to get him right now. So I'm with you. Anthony or Bryce,
All right. Yeah. With the last wide receiver, I put Allen Robinson. Obviously, he just moved to the Rams this offseason. I think you can get him cheaper than he's worth. So I think Odell Beckham Jr. left Cleveland, went to the Rams, and was fairly successful right away. Might not have got a lot of volume, but it seems like he found the end zone quite a bit, and he was getting going. And on this, he was on track to be Super Bowl MVP until he got hurt. Obviously, it's early, a lot of game left to play. But I think Allen Robinson may be just as good, if not better, than OBJ. It wouldn't surprise me to see him absolutely exceed expectations this year. I feel like a lot of people are fairly low on him after this past season, but this guy's never even had a quarterback his entire career. Obviously, Justin Fields just got there. He's not going to have time to work with him yet. That might be the best quarterback he's gotten to play with. And it was his rookie year and didn't play very much. So I think he immediately goes to the Rams. Cooper Kupp's going to see all the attention, and Allen Robinson's going to get one-on-ones with the team's second best corner, more than likely, and he's going to eat him alive. So I think Allen Robinson easily has top 12 wide receiver value this year, and you don't have to pay very much for him. I'm not seeing him traded a lot so far, and I would really like to see some deals that he's been put in and see what his price is, but I'd probably be willing to pay a late first for him, easily an early second. Rick, what are your thoughts?
Go to Anthony. I am going to look up some trades.
Good, Lanny.
See if I can find some.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd pay a late first for him. I think I'm more in the second round range, but I do think he's a good player. I do think he's someone, if you are, if you need a wide receiver, I think there are enough good wide receivers in this rookie class draft where, you could draft one in this sort of draft that I'd rather have ahead of him in that sense. But I do think he's a good player. I do think he's going to have a great season. All your points are valid. And so I think if you can acquire him, he's a guy to get. I wouldn't pay a first round pick for him, but maybe some players on my roster that another team likes that I don't like as much. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I would not personally pay a first round pick for him.
I say a late first because more than likely, if it's that owner's original first, they're probably already equipped to be a contender again.
Sure.
More than likely. So yeah. I think he will have a better year this upcoming year than probably any of the rookies that are in that spot. So if you're trading that first, yeah, maybe in the long run it might not be worth it, but if it wins you a year, maybe another, then it's easily by far worth it. That's the only reason.
That's fair. That's fair. And I guess it depends on the situation, team makeup, and whatnot. But yeah, I agree with basically everything you're saying. I think that's a good point. Rick, are you ready?
Yeah. So Allen Robinson traded straight up for Dallas Goedert, and this is 1 point PPR, straight up, no tight end premium or anything like that.
Wow.
We have Rex Burkhead, Mike Gesicki, 310 and 312 for Allen Robinson, 207 and 307. We have Derrick Henry, Alan Lazard, Allen Robinson, Albert O, and a 2023 4th-round pick for DJ Shark, the 104, the 112, and 2023 2nd-round pick. We have Jamal Williams, Allen Robinson, 311 for Cordarrelle Patterson, OJ Howard, Dawson Knox in the 210.
Ew, that's a good trade for A-Rod.
He looks
there.
like he's undervalued, in a lot of the trades, especially the smaller ones. It's hard to dissect the bigger ones that fast, but
we're not going to go down through all of them. But
yeah,
all I can say is that anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge A-Rob fan. I think last year was an anomaly. Matt Nagy. For the next 8 years, I'm probably going to bring up Matt Nagy at least 8 times every podcast and talk about how bad he was for this Bears offense.
Seems like a good guy, but just not a good coach.
A-Rob is one of the best wide receivers in the league. He really is. Like was mentioned, his best quarterback going into this year that he's played with is probably Andy Dalton, right? That's not saying Andy Dalton's good. Guys, we're not saying that. We're saying that's the best quarterback that he's probably played with.
I think like Justin Fields at this point.
Nick Foles, rookie Justin Fields in a bad Nagy offense. It's just A-Rob is one of the best contested catch wide receivers in the league. He doesn't win with speed, so I'm not worried about the age bit, right? He gets separation in other ways. And Stafford, I think we mentioned this 2 weeks ago on the stream. Stafford will throw the ball when you're contested. He doesn't care if you're covered. He will throw you the ball if you can catch the ball. And Allen Robinson can do that. He doesn't have to get a ton of separation to win at the point of catch. So at these prices, I'm A-Rob all day, baby. He's a league winner at those prices, I think, with Matt Stafford as his quarterback. At least 5 times better than any quarterback that he's played with to this point, right?
Would you trade a late first for him?
I think it does depend on the roster and the positioning of the league. But if that's what it's going to cost for me to get that player that could put me over the top for the championship, then I will overpay in those situations because I care more about winning the championship than I do that draft pick. I think there's situations where I would, there's situations where I wouldn't. It's just going to depend on that team and the league situation. I mean, I can't argue anything about A-Rob being a.
Do you have the ADP up for Allen Robinson on him?
Yeah, he was actually right there with. Where was that at? What number did I say the last guy we looked? Oh, there we go.
42-ish.
Allen Robinson. What the heck?
I'm curious where he compares to Adam Thielen. I think at this stage in their careers, they're very similar, except that Allen Robinson, I think, is a few years younger even.
Allen Robinson
the same year, same age as Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
What?
They're the same age, Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson.
But Adam Thielen,
he'll be 30 this or 29 this year. Allen Robinson will.
And Adam Thielen is older, but I think people kind of probably value them similarly, which is interesting.
There's a decent difference, about 2-round difference. Allen Robinson is wide receiver 39. He is sandwiched between Mike Williams and Chase Claypool.
I'll take him.
Darnell Mooney is 2 spots ahead, which that's just an age thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, not so obviously because Mooney had a better year on the same team and everything last year, but yeah, so wide receiver 39 and Adam Thielen is wide receiver 53.
Okay.
Literally
pretty close then, though.
Literally,
that's the thing.
Well, literally 2 rounds separate them. Allen Robinson comes in at pick 82.33.
Yeah.
And Adam Thielen comes in at 106.17. So literally 24 picks apart. 2 rounds separate them two.
Yeah. And they're years apart in age.
They are literally 28.6 to 31.6.
Yeah.
So 3-year difference in age. So Allen Robinson definitely belongs higher in the ADP. So I'm on board.
Agreed.
Okay. That is the last wide receiver. Now we have Anthony picking a terrible running back as the first one off our board. We can get him out of the way.
Wow. All right. My pick for running back is Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. Did you know the past 2 seasons, last year, Josh Jacobs was RB12. It's a RB1. The year before that, 2020, RB8, top 10 fantasy running back. The thing that I like most about Josh Jacobs is that every season he's been in the league, he's increased receptions. His first season, I think he only had like 20 receptions. This past season, he got 54. So it's more than doubled his rookie season. This past season, he had 9 rushing touchdowns, no receiving touchdowns. But I expect in this upcoming season, Josh Jacobs, the Raiders are going to be on an improved offense. I really do believe he has top 5 upside, given that the offense is going to be a lot better. And keep in mind, he's only 24 years old. There are literally running backs getting drafted next week that are just as old as Josh Jacobs. And he's going to be going into his 4th season at 24 years old. Bryce.
Sorry, Rick is making the best faces. I don't hate. You go ahead, Rick. You go ahead.
No, it's just, the top 5 thing is not happening. I'll just throw that out there.
I think there have to be injuries, a lot of injuries for that to happen.
Whoa, he was already running back 8 the season before last. He was RB12 last year.
Yeah, I don't care. I will put money
that means
now
he went down.
He will not be top 5.
4 spots.
He went down. So he should get wide. They should be 16 this year.
going the wrong way. Yes, going the wrong way.
Listen, I don't hate Josh Jacobs, but I think again, I feel like this is Price, where he is getting more receptions. Obviously, his rookie year he hardly had any, and I remember that in the offseason after his rookie year, he did say he wanted to be more involved in the pass game, and he put some astronomical number that he was going to get and didn't even come close to it, but he did get more involved. Yeah. But again, now this team has way more weapons. Like they got Waller, Renfro, Adams. I think Josh Jacobs' receiving numbers are probably peaked at this point. He's going to be like Damian Harris to me, where he's going to be touchdown dependent more often than not. So I just don't know about the price. Again, I feel like the people that have Josh Jacobs, are sticking to their guns with the numbers you just gave, and they're like, yeah, this guy's a guy's an RB1. You're gonna have to pay RB1 numbers for him, and I'm just not willing to do that. Like, there's just so many other guys. I'm sure the ADP, there's several guys below him that I think have higher PPR value and things like that. And Josh Jacobs ending up as 12-8 are also something that he can credit to him staying healthy. And that's important. Him staying healthy is important. And my guy has that same thing where he stays relatively healthy. But he's not like he's finishing higher just because he's on the field more, whether I think there's guys below him that have more talent. And if they do stay healthy, they're going to be more valuable. And I think that you can even get him a little bit cheaper, in my opinion. Rick.
Yeah, listen, I do think that he is a value at where he's being, drafted and acquired, or at least going to hit that value where he's at, right? He's like RB18 in ADP.
Right. That's
fair. And I think that is a pretty fair price for him. We're talking about a running back that doesn't have any juice, right? Doesn't catch a lot of passes. That does not equate to the upside that you were talking about, right? This dude had a 20-yard run on less than 1% of his runs. That's like right with Sony Michel and Ramondre Stevenson area as like the 49th running back out of all running backs that had 80 plus carries. So you're not going to get the burst plays out of him, which means that they have to get inside the 10 and give him the ball instead of throwing Devontae Adams, who they're paying $150 million a year to. Obviously that wasn't serious, even though I looked serious. But they just paid that man a lot of money to catch touchdown passes, right? So the touchdown equity between Adams and Waller is going to eat up a lot of that, I think. And you got to get 15 touchdowns to get that high end top 5 that you were talking about. That's why I made the face with top 5. Top 5 is a stretch. Back end running back 1, high end running back 2, I do think is fair. But I
can't agree with that, because that's what he did the last 2 years. So you're saying he can't do any better than what he has already done on a more improved offense. I don't understand the logic.
Okay, you're talking about in an offense that did not have Devontae Adams or wide receivers that caught touchdowns. Waller 2 years ago, we were going, how is Waller not getting any touchdowns? Right? He had all those catches, and what was Waller's touchdown total in 2020?
Well, he started the year pretty strong. I guess
he didn't have a lot of touchdowns, right?
No, I guess.
Wait,
I guess
2020
5.
was the first year was 2019. In 2019 and 2021, Waller had a combined 5 touchdowns. He had 9 in 2020. Okay. There's going to be more. Waller's going to be, if he's healthy, is going to be in that 10 touchdown range, right? And then Devontae Adams is going to be what, 15, 16 touchdowns?
Not necessarily. I don't
think so?
I don't
You don't
know.
think Derek Carr is going to go back to his college roomie and throw him a bunch of touchdown passes when the Raiders
I don't think you can
project.
I don't think you can project Devontae Adams at 16 touchdowns. No, I'd like to know what the Vegas line on that is.
I also think that Gruden was a big part of Jacob's success as well. I mean, he's gone now, but he has always been a run first kind of coach, and I don't think the guy taking over maybe sticking to that those same guns. So I understand what you're saying, Looney. Like, we think that offense got better, but he's not going to do as well. And I think that's true because the other weapons are going to eat into his production, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And
the
I'm
Raiders
saying
were actually 6th in the league in total passing attempts already without Devontae Adams. With Brian Edwards, who I loved, but Devontae Adams is quite a bit better than Brian Edwards.
There'll be way more scoring opportunities for Josh Jacobs. It's going to be a better offense.
He's very touchdown dependent.
There'll be more lanes to run through. The field's going to be spread wide open. It's going to be a great offense to watch. You guys will see.
Will I? You want to put your money on it?
Hey, listen, top 5 seems like a stretch. I think top 15 is good.
I'll put about every dollar I have on Josh Jacobs not finishing top 5.
Give me some odds and we'll talk.
Wait, you want odds? You're the one that came up with the line.
I said he has top 5 upside. He finished running back 8 2 years ago, running back 12 last year.
If I said I have top 5 upside, is that crazy?
No, but why don't you list the other running backs around him and tell me who do you think would have a better season out of him or the other guys that are being drafted near him?
Fair, yeah. So who's the first 2 above him?
First 2 above him are Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne.
Okay, I think
J.K. Dobbins right ahead of him. Alvin Kamara right ahead of him. Cam Akers.
Who's behind Jacobs?
We've got Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, David Montgomery, Elijah Mitchell, Ezekiel Elliott, James Conner, A.J. Dillon. Okay, so right here is James Conner could easily finish ahead of him. Zeke, probably in the same range. Elijah Mitchell, if healthy, could easily finish ahead of him. David Montgomery could finish ahead of him.
Well, of course you guys could finish ahead of him. That's not the point. The point is Jacobs has been really good the past 2 seasons, and he's not being valued fairly.
Let's do this. He's not finishing ahead of Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, we're assuming health, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, or Alvin Kamara.
He very well could finish above any of those guys you listed.
If they're injured.
Yes.
yeah. If 80% of those guys get injured, Josh Jacobs has.
But that's not the point. The point is he's only 24 and he's painfully undervalued.
What do you mean only 24? He's a running back.
I'm aware, but he's
younger
than all the guys you just listed off. He He's younger than everyone you just listed off. Every single one.
And Javonte.
Every one of those guys can get there in multiple ways, and Josh Jacobs doesn't, is my point.
He's touchdown dependent. This is what it is.
The only one that doesn't get there multiple ways is Derrick Henry.
He didn't have double-digit touchdowns last year, and he was still an RB12. So I don't think he's touchdown dependent.
But you can't just say RB12. That is a very vague statement with Henry hurt, Kamara missing time, Christian McCaffrey missing time,
Chubb.
We talked about Chubb missed time. Dobbins was out the whole year.
Of course.
Cam Akers was out the whole year.
So he's top 12. He's number 12 because of that. Like he's probably realistically like.
And then you've got, if you believe in Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker, you got those guys coming in. Travis Etienne coming back. I would put money on him not being and Waller missed half the season last year too. Literally left Josh Jacobs and Hunter Renfrow as the only offensive players on the entire team at running back. I mean, he was fighting with Peyton Barber and Kenyon Drake was hurt. But anyways, we spent as much time on Josh Jacobs as the rest of our trade targets so far. I do think he's a value. I'm arguing the top 5 upside. That does not exist.
I understand.
Bryce, you said Zeke.
Yeah, I did. I put Zeke. I have Zeke. I think last year he played injured a lot of the year for most of the year. He ended as running back 6. Again, we just discussed he wouldn't have been running back 6 if all those guys we just mentioned were healthy. He's probably around like running back 12, 13. I'm actually looking at it right here. He averaged running back 15 numbers. Guys above him like Aaron Jones, Cordarrelle Patterson, Nick Chubb. All the guys above him are great. Like I prefer them above him. I think he's valued right around where he should be. And I think you're going to find people that are like, okay, it's Pollard's time to take over. And I just don't see it. Like Zeke is an all-around back. Like he can catch fairly well. He is an in-between the tackles runner. They're probably going to give it to him when they're near the end zone. And he is probably one of the best blocking backs, if not the best blocking back in the NFL, which means he's going to be on the field more. So I think that you can capitalize on the value of him having a quote unquote disappointing year to people. Like I feel like all year people were saying Zeke's washed, Pollard's going to take over. I don't think Pollard's equipped to be able to take over a workload like Zeke is, and he's going to come into this year healthy and ideally stay that way. I think he has a somewhat of a bounce back year. I'd like to see him. I project that he sees over 1,000 yards rushing and close to double-digit touchdowns. So I think for value, Zeke could be potentially a league winner for you. Running backs in this draft, in my opinion, are really thin. I'd rather have him over probably all the running backs that are in this draft according to value. So, Rick, what are your thoughts?
I think the upside with Zeke is gone. I think what you get here is stability.
That's fair.
Zeke, for the last few years, has been a guy that just gets a lot of runs in between 1 and 5-6 yards. Doesn't have a lot of burst. He's another guy that's barely over 1% with 20-yard runs. He does catch the ball more than the last guy that we talked to, but the saving grace is I don't think Pollard's an every down back in the NFL either. Yeah. So Zeke's going to get his. He does block. This has been Zeke's thing over the past few years. He's not necessarily the most efficient. Prior to this year, he didn't lose yards very often. He was very efficient there. And then he just a lot of runs in between 1 and 5 yards and steady getting the workload. The problem is when that workload drops and Pollard is going to eat into that like he has, then you just lose that upside. So I don't necessarily, I think he's a back end running back 1, high end running back 2 at peak. And could find his way to the lower mid to lower RB2s if he doesn't get the amount of volume that we're used to him getting in it at 27, almost 28, I believe. That's probably coming here soon, right? That workload drop. So it's a scary one, but he is running back 24 in ADP. So there is some upside on that price if he does get back end running back 1, high running back 2. Anthony.
Yeah, I can't agree there. He's too old. He's too He's too he's too of a has-been. Rick kind of hit the nail on the head. He was kind of like Frank Gore. I mean, why pay ADP of 24 running back for Frank Gore when he should be down in the low 30s?
Let me ask you a question in that regards. Would you pay running back 25 prices for James Conner?
I don't know. I have a hard time.
What's a hard time for running back.
26, 27. I mean,
Kamara, Dalvin Cook, those guys are too old.
I would not be trading for them. Those are not guys that I would be trading for heading into this season. No way.
Why not?
I mean,
what is wrong?
It depends on your situation.
In a league last year, I traded for Alvin Kamara because I was trying to win the championship. In hindsight, I shouldn't have done it. And
process over results. Always.
I understand that.
Because you're looking at the results. It's easy to look in hindsight, and hindsight's always 20/20. But
in my process right now, before the season starts, looking at a running back who's 27 years old, it's not someone I want to trade for. Because in order to get Zeke, you're going to have to pay about the same you'd have to pay for Josh Jacobs, who's 3 years younger. Joe Mixon, who's 2 years younger.
I think Joe Mixon is going to be more than Zeke.
I don't think it would be. I don't think it would.
Joe Mixon's RB9. Like, that's a huge game.
But Josh Jacobson, for example, I mean, how much of a difference would you have to pay to get someone like Josh Jacobs as opposed to?
Let me ask you this: in regards to players, what is more important, talent, opportunity, or age? Because Zeke's a much more talented running back than Josh Jacobs, I think. And they compare when it comes to bursts, they compare very admirably to each other. Admirably, I don't know why I use that word, but they compare very
a week ago
to each other. But hold on. But Zeke catches the ball a lot more, right?
Not a lot more. He didn't have that many catches this past season. But
I mean, if we're looking at 1 year as a trend, that changes everything. But
how many did Josh Jacobs
historically?
I don't know. Well, I know Josh Jacobs had 54 last season. I would imagine Zeke hit that or was close to that. I don't think he had more than 50.
He had 60, but he had 95 targets.
Okay.
Second
Zeke last year?
Yeah, 60 catches, 95 targets.
I have 47 catches of that. What I'm looking at.
Oh, never mind. I'm looking at 2022's projection. Yeah, you're right. 47. Projected 60 this year, which is stupid, but 81 was his most he had in a year.
Yeah, so I'm just saying if you're looking at.
But what's your question? Because here, one of our listeners asked me a question. Now this is a different position, but I'll go quick. He said, "Would you rather have DeAndre Hopkins or Brandon Ayuk?" Okay, and I told him Brandon Ayuk because he is way younger, and even though DeAndre Hopkins is likely going to have a better season, who's more likely to tear their ACL this season? DeAndre Hopkins or Brandon Ayuk?
I don't think that's
I give it a 50-50 split. But, and so weigh that, 50% chance either one tears their ACL. Who's going to be more valuable 2 years from now once they're healthy?
What's more valuable than a championship this year?
I look, the way I play Dynasty,
because you're only getting Hopkins if you're competing this year, right?
Yeah, so you're not targeting unless
you're not targeting him if you're losing. So,
but what's the difference between Brandon Ayuk and DeAndre Hopkins? Maybe
winning a championship.
Not necessarily. No, I disagree with that. I 100% disagree with that.
Ayuk isn't going to win it. I don't think Ayuk's.
Yeah, one of those guys could take you to the next
level. And DeAndre Hopkins isn't that much better to guarantee a championship either. That's my point.
I think he's way better to do that. Anyways, we're getting way off the rails here. My point is that age doesn't mean as much as people make it out. Just because somebody's 4 years younger doesn't mean that they're going to help you win a championship any more than a guy that is 30. Unless you're preparing and thinking 6-7 years out in your dynasty leagues, it's just not. It's overvalued drastically in Dynasty. You're trying to win this year, next year. And if you're worried about more than 3 years out, then you don't even know if the league's going to last that long. Anyways, where are we at here? Did we finish on Zeke?
No, you have yours. You didn't have
no,
one.
but down. I mean, did we finish Zeke?
I guess.
I do think he's a value at running back 24.
I think he has a better year than he had the last two. That's the only reason I put him on there. I think you only target him if you're a contender or want to be one. Like, obviously, you're not rebuilding and targeting Zeke. That's counterproductive. Sure.
Understood.
So, I mean, the only reason I put some of these veteran guys on there is if you're in I think you got to be like 7 through 12 if you're in a 12 man, because sometimes it's pretty close, unless you're like unless there's a huge gap, of course. But
yeah,
playoff team.
Yeah, that's the other thing with all those age arguments is that people aren't going after these old players that they're acquiring when they're not competing. I mean, most people aren't, right? If you're going after them and you look like a bottom third team, then that's bad. That's very bad for that team. But if you're in the top half with a chance to win, those guys are better for your team than a guy that is 5 years younger and may put up half the numbers. That's my point. Okay. So we've talked about this guy a couple times, and I really wanted to go different than I've talked about on some other shows, but we didn't really talk about him as a trade target. We just talked about him as, a guy that could get some work, more work than he did. So Khalil Herbert to me is still extremely undervalued. Looking at his ADP, he is running back 50 in Dynasty. Maybe he's too old. He's 23.9 years old. Anyways, we know that last year he stepped in and was, he started weeks 5 through 8 for Chicago. Those teams that he played against were Las Vegas, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco. All of them were top half run defenses. Las Vegas was 16th, Green Bay 10th, San Francisco 6th, and Tampa Bay 3rd. We saw him break the streak of non-100-yard rushing games against Tampa Bay. In those 4 weeks, he had 78 carries, 10 targets for 88 opportunities. From weeks 9 through 18, for some reason, this is Matt Nagy for you, he totaled 21 carries, 6 targets for 27 opportunities after that production. We're not going to see that this year, right? We've got the offensive coordinator coming over, the new offensive coordinators from Green Bay. What did we see in Green Bay? Virtually a split between a very productive Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams 2 years ago, and then this past year with A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon had 187 rushing attempts last year for the Packers. I don't know that Khalil Herbert's going to get 10 per week. It'll probably be pretty close, though. He was also one of 2 running backs in the entire league that finished with as best in negative runs at 5.83%. He was 9th in the league for running backs with 80-plus carries. And then he was 7th in the league with 20-plus yard runs at 3.88% of his carries. The only other person in the top 10 on both of those carries was Tony Pollard that we talked about. He was first in negative runs at 3.08% and 10th in 20-plus yard runs at 3.08%. So he had the same amount of negative runs as he did 20-plus yard runs. But Khalil Herbert is going to eat into David Montgomery's stock this year. He's going to get more work. He's going to be a potential flex play in this offense, I think. And then looking at 2023, he's a guy that could be the Bears starter at running back. And I would rather get him a year earlier now at running back 50 in Dynasty than him be in that running back 25 range a year from now when people are projecting him as the starting running back for the Chicago Bears before the draft. So that's why I like Khalil Herbert. I think he's going to have standalone value for you this year and could potentially be a running back 2, high end, mid in 2023. He did finish 6 through 8. He was running back 12. He had 2 top 12 appearances in those 4 games that he played. And like I said, 4 top 16 defenses against the run that he faced in his 4 starts. And that's where the majority of his work came from. And he was still more consistent and productive on a per touch basis than David Montgomery was last year in Chicago. So Khalil Herbert is, I just think, a guy that everybody should grab and stash there and watch him reap benefits for you down the road. Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to follow that with much of an opinion. You gave all the statistics, but this is a guy you want to target if you're not competing this year and you want to compete maybe next year or the year after or the year after that, because like you said, his price right now is so cheap before he becomes a starter. He's been so productive right now that when David Montgomery's contract ends, there's a decent chance that they just let him walk and they use Khalil Herbert, who's on his rookie deal for a year. And then if they don't have anyone, they could extend him or something like that. So he has the potential to have a lot more value in the future. So I agree with everything you just said. If you're rebuilding and you need running back, maybe this is a guy that you can target that value is going to return and some here in a couple of years. Leone?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good pick. I think it's possible what Rick, kind of forecasted happens. There is a concern though that the Bears do draft a running back. There are some running backs that. Okay.
Bears aren't drafting a running back. I can almost put money on that one too.
Too many holes.
Probably, way too many holes. They're not running backs. Not where they're.
It could be a late running back, like maybe
like maybe a 7th rounder, but I don't even think they draft one.
They may draft a running back, knowing that David Montgomery is his contract is ending. Okay, you guys can disagree. They already have their quarterback. So
we're missing picks. You got to remember that we're missing a lot of picks.
I understand that.
I'm just saying, who do you think where do you think they could potentially draft a running back? I'm just curious.
I have to look at their exact.
I didn't know if they.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. We have 39 and 48 in the second round. We have a 3rd rounder. We don't have a 4th rounder, and then we have some late 5ths and 6th. Like they're not.
Okay, yeah. So they're
not taking.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't care about the 5th and 6th, right? I'm more worried about Darrington Evans that they just brought in than I am in a 5th or 6th round pick this year.
Okay. Well, when was Khalil Herbert drafted?
He was a 5th round draft pick last year.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Like
last year's draft was a lot better at running back. Running backs got pushed back. This year they're not. Is that not true? That not true?
Yeah.
Is the quality of the 5th round in 2022 the same as the quality of the 5th round in 2021?
All I'm saying.
Is it? Answer me. Is it?
I think we could honestly better research and debate the 5th round running backs after this draft happens to get a real answer on that. I don't think it's possible to argue that the 5th round draft last year is better than the 5th round draft that hasn't happened yet. So I'm not willing to go there.
I'm talking about when you look at an entire draft class, and we look at the entire 2021 draft class, do you not think that draft class from the skill positions or from running back and quarterback and wide receivers debatable? There's wide receivers I like in this draft, but is this class not worse than last year's class?
I would argue.
I would argue that rates these rookies. Tell me the truth.
I would argue that the running back class is very similar to last year. I would argue that.
I highly disagree.
Who were the top 5 running backs last year? I mean, up there was Trey Sermon. I mean,
well, that was fantasy wise. People.
Okay, I thought this was a fantasy show. I could be wrong.
Well, no, but we're talking about the NFL draft.
Who were the top 5 running backs last year?
Anthony, does the NFL look at your fantasy roster and say, I should take that guy in the 4th round? No, we're talking about the NFL draft.
Who were the top 5 fantasy running backs last year? Who were they?
Etienne, fantasy is Najee.
It's top 5. Let's get some rookie rankings, right? Top 5.
Ramondre probably in there. Yeah, Elijah Mitchell.
Are you talking about how they
Najee.
finished?
No, just at draft time. Who
Draft.
was believed to be the top 5?
Najee,
Najee.
Williams, Etienne.
Javonte.
Those 3 are better than the top 3 in this class.
Yeah, I said Javonte.
Okay, good.
Michael Carter.
Okay, Michael Carter.
Gainwell.
Okay,
I'm
so that's my point.
Right now.
So my point is, and then if you go through the rookies in this class, right? Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall. A lot of these guys. I mean, yeah, are they as good as Javonte Williams? No, but you're talking about the top 3 guys. Okay. But once you get past the top 3 guys, the running backs are all pretty similar to last year. So to say that the running backs in last year's 5th round are light years ahead of the running backs in this draft that hasn't happened yet, I don't understand how you can make that argument because it just doesn't jive.
There's more talent at the front end that pushes stuff back. It's the same as
3 guys. 3 guys is gonna make you say that the whole running back class is a lot better than this year. It just doesn't work that way. Khalil Herbert.
Okay.
The
first running back might not go till the late 2nd, early 3rd in this class. That pushes everything.
Was Etienne drafted in the
Either way.
first? Or no,
Either way, the Bears aren't taking running back. They have way too many holes, and they're not taking a running back that's going to compete with
maybe the
Herbert
year
and
after.
Montgomery.
Probably.
But you can go on the finish.
Okay. As we discussed on a former show, I think Khalil Herbert is someone to get. I do see the path to upside. I do think what you drawn out could very well happen. I think he's a good value right now. But I do not think it's a surefire thing. And if you go out into your league mates and try to get Khalil Herbert and they want you to overpay for him, I would not do that because I think there is a lot of potential pitfalls to what you laid out that you kind of skipped and jumped over. That's all I'm saying.
How much are you paying for the running back 50? Whatever that cost is, if you lose it, it doesn't kill your team.
I don't know what you can get for him. If you can get him for fair value, then yes, I agree 100%. We're not gonna debate
What's an
that.
overpay here?
Would you trade a mid-second round pick?
Easily. I'm
Okay.
trading it for Khalil Herbert.
I wouldn't.
It depends who's there for me.
Yeah, so I
Khalil
wouldn't.
Herbert's already shown us in the NFL what he can do. Those 2nd-round running backs that you're drafting this year, nobody has any idea what they can do in the
for
NFL.
running backs, yeah. If I'm okay at running back, there might be some wide receivers I like in the mid-second that I could potentially. But running back, yeah, there's none out of the first round that I would take Khalil Herbert out of the ones that are falling out of the first round.
If I lose a mid-second, I don't care. Not especially in this class.
Okay. So that's all I'm saying. I think Herbert's a good pick. I think you have it. You hit the nail on the head. His ADP is criminal. It's way too low. I wanted to just point out it's not all sunshine and rainbows. That's all.
Bears aren't drafting a running back.
I don't think so either.
That is the last player. I got to go up here. We had a question a long time ago. We went way longer. Sometimes Anthony says dumb stuff. Got to put him in his place. Wilson said, I have Tua and Hurts on my 1 QB dynasty. Do I need to focus on drafting Willis with one of my top 5 picks in top 15?
He has 5 picks in the top 15.
5 picks in the top 15. Well, I'm going to start this off by you should never force anything, right? You should let the draft fall to you and make the best picks possible at that time. You should not force going after a guy. Now, if you want to trade up to get him or something like that, I don't think it's bad if you believe in that player. Go get your guys. Doesn't always work out though. But with Tua and Hurts, I think they're going to be fine starters for you this year. But you're probably going to have to look for something. I may try to trade one of those first rounders for a for sure quarterback, an older quarterback. Get me a, first round. Maybe you might be able to go out and get a Russell Wilson from the right guy. People are a little hype on him, but he's 33, so you might be able to get somebody like that instead. But that's where I'm at with that. Anthony, what are you thinking?
Yeah, we kind of touched on this question last week, Rick, when you weren't here. We did our mock draft in a 1 QB dynasty, and Brad did take Willis in the mock draft. I think at pick 11. Bryce, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was pick 11. So, yeah. And I think Bryce and I both disagreed with that decision. I believe, and I'll speak for Bryce right now, but he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think we are more so inclined to get a positional player that can really increase value, as opposed to taking a quarterback who may or may not, be any good. And then even if they are good, they may only be as good as Tua or Hurts. Two examples of two guys on your current team basically staring at you saying, this is why you don't draft a quarterback this early. They're already on your team giving you a reminder why you don't do that. So I would not do that. I would go for position players. Like Rick said, if you're gonna try to trade for a quarterback, get a better quarterback with one of your picks. Don't waste one of your first or early second round picks on a quarterback who may or may not be anything.
Let me add on to that real quick.
Yeah.
Basically, I think the point that both of us are trying to make, and we didn't say it as easy as we could have, is if you're going to get this third quarterback, either get one that is clearly worse, but good enough to fill in, or much better, right? You don't want to have 3 quarterbacks that are all the same tier that you're fighting over which ones do you start each week. Oh, this is a 1 QB.
One QB.
I was looking at this as super flex the whole time. Forget quarterback. Don't even draft any. Don't even do anything.
Yeah.
You're good where you're at. I thought it was super flex.
No, but I mean,
but no matter what, like, you don't want Hurts as your starter here easily, right? Hurts is the guy you're starting every week. Tua is filling in. They're not close in a 1 QB. You're starting Hurts every week. What you don't want to do is have too many players at quarterback, a position that there's not enough separation, where you're fighting with yourself every week. Who do I start? Make it easier on yourself.
Now, maybe. Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I'm just going to say, have the guy here that's easy to start, and then the guy that's easily the backup, and don't make your life any harder than that. In a super flex, if you have these two, don't go out and get somebody that is only, going to be in Tua's range, and then make it hard on who you're starting as your quarterback too. Make it easier on yourself. 1 QB, take those 2, worry about everything else.
And obviously, Wilson here is Wilson Hensley, who asked the question, is obviously not pleased with Tua and Hurts. Well, maybe you can package Tua or Hurts and one of your picks, and you could get Josh Allen, or then that way you kind of you get the quarterback you want, you get rid of your headache not knowing who to start every week, and you make your team better in the process. That would be something I would consider. But if you're talking about just drafting a rookie quarterback, I wouldn't do it until the 3rd round in a rookie draft. 12.
Yeah, and 1 QB, you don't even have to worry about doing that. There's just not enough There's not a separation gap. Hurts is a top 6 quarterback as long as he's starting, because of the rushing upside. I would just stick with that and focus all your attention on improving the other positions, because you're fine at quarterback. Like I said, Hurts is going to be a top 5-6 quarterback as long as he's healthy, right, Bryce?
Yeah, the drafting Willis is not necessary in 1 quarterback. The only thing I said about Brad's is the only way that pick doesn't seem like a reach is if for some reason Willis ends up being like a top 3. So yeah, I agree with everything you guys said.
All right. I think that was the only question we had in there. I want to say hey to my boy JL that stopped by in the chat. Sully in the chat the whole time. Thank you for sticking around. Kevin K was in here chatting with us. Patrick, everybody that's been here with us. We appreciate it. Next week's gonna be a little weird. We don't know exactly what we're doing. I'm gonna be in Vegas for the NFL draft and maybe streaming from there with these guys. If not, at some point I want to do that while I'm out there, but gonna have some fun content that we're creating. I'm gonna create while I'm out there. But we'll have a show. It's gonna be draft related probably. And Anthony and Bryce will at least be here. And then stuff's gonna change a little bit after the draft. This show is gonna be moved to either 8 p.m. on Tuesday or Wednesday. We're still working on that, depending on who's going to be joining Bryce on that show. And then Anthony and I at 9:30 on Tuesday nights are going to be starting a best ball with Cody. It looks like a best ball stream. So little bit of changes coming. We're going to be better at getting these shows over in an hour and not going on rampages about Josh Jacobs.
But Khalil Herbert, Bears drafting a running back.
Bears aren't drafting a running back. They're not.
It's gonna be so funny if they do, and you're gonna get blown up.
Well, no, I mean, it'll be as dumb as when Green Bay drafted AJ Dillon and
no, because they wouldn't do that early in the draft. But yeah,
I mean, they might. I'm saying they're not going to draft one at a time where it's going to Herbert and Montgomery are the top two running backs on that team, and they're going to be going into the season.
I don't disagree.
Hey yo, from the boys at Front Yard Fantasy, some of my best friends in the whole world. But that's it. We're out of here. We'll be back next. We'll have something for you guys.
We'll be here.
Who knows what'll happen?
Anthony and I will be here at least.
Yeah, which is Ryan Furlong was the Facebook user. Thanks for letting me know, Bryce.
No, I think Anthony said that.
Oh, Anthony, thanks for letting me know. Bryce is normally my guy watching the chat.
I actually went and saw it. I was waiting for you to ask me, but Anthony put it in there.